Hi everyone, thank you for being here today. I'm Shilva from Sri Lanka. I'm here today to give my presentation at Cortisol Teaching Conference. My research topic is difficulties encountered by the ESL teachers in government schools in Sri Lanka. Okay, this is my topic, difficulties encountered by the ESL teachers in government schools in Sri Lanka. Let's go to Sketchu. Introduction, research objectives, literature review, research questions, methodology, data analysis, discussion, conclusion. In introduction, I would like to tell why I chose this topic. Because of my own experience in English teaching in Sri Lanka. And also I understood the difficulties of ESL teacher and learner. Also, I am curious to identify the other teachers' difficulties as well. I will tell you what is the role of English language as a second language in Sri Lanka. Teaching of English as a second language in Sri Lanka has been reinforced, especially since the 1990s, in order to find a solution to the Sinhala-Tamil ethnic conflict. Fluency in English in Sri Lanka is an inevitable social requirement. English language considered as a highly prestigious language which provides access to all kinds of privileges. Also, importance of acquiring competency in English in the context of Sri Lanka has been recognized by society. It has stated by Mr. Abe Vikrama in 2008. English is a compulsory subject in the school curriculum in Sri Lanka. Also, all the students should be taken the English language as a subject in ordinary level and advanced level in Sri Lanka. My research objectives are to find out what difficulties do the ESL teachers have faced in Sri Lanka and what are the common issues. Also, I want to figure out the solution to solve those problems and to examine do ESL teachers use communicative language teaching approach in the classroom. Let's look at the literature review. First one, according to Karunaratne, the teachers and students' excessive dependency on the mother tongue is one of the major difficulties to the learn ESL in Sri Lanka. Both students and teachers tended to revert to their mother tongue very often in the classroom, obstructing the oral communicative objectives of classroom activities. Dooley in 1982 defined interferences as the automatic transfer due to habit of the surface structure of the first language onto the surface of the target language. Scala in 1998 described the main linguistic areas that pose difficulties to students in learning ESL. The research considers contrastive aspect of negation in English and Sinhala. Further, spoken Sinhala is merely very different from written Sinhala. Hilpert in 2006, thus the author says that Sinhala native speakers face with the difficulty of understanding the differences in written and spoken English. Chandrasekhara in 2006 mentioned that teachers are very much concerned about completing the syllabus in order to prepare students for a school term test and for the GCE O-level examination. According to Mackay, 2000, another disadvantage of excessive dependency on the textbook was the inadequate use of non-textbook based teaching material in the classroom. Also, Karunaratne 2003 specifying the urgent requirement of more research to explore the necessity of improving the English teacher training programs and the national examination system for the successful implementation of communicative language teaching methods. Also in 2012, Barbie investigated the role of motivation as a contributing factor in second language learning in a disadvantaged school setting in Sri Lanka. The author attempted to show the relationship between a culture of poverty and learning. Supportive and positive relationships between teachers and students ultimately promote a sense of school belonging and encourage students to participate cooperatively in classroom activities. Let's look at research questions. My first research question is, what are the difficulties teachers face in teaching English as a second language in government schools in Sri Lanka? And my second question is, do teachers use the communicative language teaching approach in the classroom? In the methodology part, I used as data 4 female ESL teachers from government schools in Kaluthura district, Sri Lanka, and all of them are teaching English for grade 8 students. All of these female teachers are experienced as English teachers for 4 to 6 years. And my research method is qualitative research. And I collected data by using interviews, discussion, and teachers' notes. Again, methodology part. I asked 4 ESL teachers to write some notes about the difficulties they have faced while teaching in the classroom. And I collected the notes through emails. Also, I interviewed 4 ESL teachers separately, and it took 30 minutes for each for them. Also, I discussed with 4 teachers together using group calls through Viber. Let's look at data analysis. I will explain according to the research question 1. These data had analyzed by interviews, discussion, and teacher notes. First one is teaching and learning materials. Textbook, which is issued by the Education Ministry in Sri Lanka, and inadequate time limit. For this state, teacher Anne, in the interview, she stated as government schools have English textbooks, which is said by the Ministry of Education in Sri Lanka. My personal opinion is these textbooks are only focused on grammar, writing, and reading. It is not focused on speaking and listening, which is more important in the real life. Also, teachers has to concentrate about the term test and should be completed the textbook before the term test. So this is another issue of us. So again, teacher Fernando gives her teacher note like she said, I think the biggest problem with the textbook which we have to teach for students, the authorities and policymakers should be aware to develop students' communication skills. And again, teacher Nipuni, in the discussion part, she explained, we don't have time to put them into practice because we have to focus on the lesson and within 40 minutes we have to finish the class. Sometimes even I need to games, practice dialogues, but I am failed to do those things because of the same time limit. I am not satisfied with as a teacher because I couldn't prepare my students to use communicative language in real life. So, with these discussions, interviews, and teacher notes, we can analyze, we can get to know about the idea about the English textbooks in Sri Lanka and the time limit, because we don't have enough time limit to teach the lesson during the classroom, and also the textbooks are not provide enough knowledge to the students like grammar, writing, and reading. They just focused on these 3 components, but my opinion is we have to focus on speaking, listening, and other parts as well. And again, the next one is different level of students. Teacher Himanta said majority of students used to speak Sinhala most of the time. Some of them are chat in pairs and all of them are low level students. Sometimes hard to control them. And again, teacher Fernando said, actually in my classroom many of students are in low level students. Those are bored and they don't pay attention to the lesson. In the interview, teacher Nipuni said some students never do their homework. As I noticed, all of them are low-level students. Sometimes I had to complain to the parents, but the sad thing is parents doesn't have an idea about the importance of the English language. This is a really bad thing in Sri Lanka because some parents they don't know the importance of English language. They actually do not motivate their students to learn English. So this is a big trouble in Sri Lanka as well. As Himanta mentioned, most of students speak Sinhala because they don't like to learn English. And another thing is lack of infrastructure facilities. In our discussion part, teacher Himanta mentioned we don't have computers or multimedia rooms to practice listening and pronunciation. If we have, we can do more practical lessons. I think government should be provide facilities like computers and internet. Again, teacher Anne state in her interview, if we can make a library including graded readers books, English novels like Jane Eyre, Oliver Twist, and we can motivate students to read by themselves. In Sri Lanka, some of government schools they don't have a library. So I think if they have library, students can be motivated to read more and more. Also, another problem is using native language rather than target language. As teacher Himanta mentioned, in my case, low level students are speaking Sinhala most of the time. They don't interest to studying English and sometimes they are disturbing others as well. Sometimes I had to do the class by focused on high level students. Sometimes this happens in government schools because there are low level students and high level students, so teacher had to take the class with both level students, but if there are some low level students, sometimes they try to disturb during the classroom. According to research question, teacher Nipuni said, even I wanted to use English all the time, but I have to concentrate of my low level students. So when I explain the lesson, I have to use Sinhala as well. As an example, during a grammar lesson, I have to use Sinhala to explain the grammar rules. If I teach all the things in English, it is so hard to explain to low level students. This is another trouble in Sri Lanka. And teacher Anne said, majority of my students are high level students, so I am using English at all the time to communicate them. And I think it will be a good advantage for all the students as well as low level students. The reason why I am telling this, sometimes I can see the positive influence of speaking English with low level students. In a teacher note, teacher Fernando said, I always try to use communicative language during the classroom. I can see the motivation of high level students and I gave them more opportunities for practice the language. But my low level students are getting bored when I use English during the lesson. They'd like to use Sinhala rather than using English. It is hard to use communicative language in the classroom even I want to do it so. In findings, I found difficulties encountered by the teachers. The first one is teaching and learning materials, textbook with inadequate knowledge and the time limit. And the next one, different levels of students. High level students and low level students are mixed in the classroom, so the ESL teachers should be focused on both parties. And lack of infrastructure facilities. Government schools showed poor infrastructure facilities. Also, students are using native language rather than target language. Low income of parents and lack of encouragement. And findings for the research question 2. The findings of the study indicate that the instructional method used by ESL teachers does not provide the learners with adequate input of the target language to develop their communication skills in government school context. As a result of that, majority of students from government schools in Sri Lanka showed the low proficiency level in spoken English. So the ESL teachers should be aware communicative based teaching and motivate students. In my discussion and solution part, I will explain according to the research questions and findings. According to that, we'll suggest few solutions. The first one, discuss with English language material producers and policymakers regarding the textbooks and infrastructure facilities. Motivate students to speak English as much as they can, such as greeting, request, like that. Try to empower students and help them feel that they can indeed do it. Let the students feel that they can do mistakes while they speak and correct as much as can. Engage students in group activities and keep the lesson more interesting. Also, notify the parents about the students' progress and explain the importance of learning English language. Teachers should give students the correct pronunciation of new words and they can imitate it. Also, rewarding students. In the conclusion part, let's see. This study tried to illustrate that difficulties faced by ESL teachers in government schools in Sri Lanka. In recent years, the use of English language has had impact on the social, cultural, political and economic factors in Sri Lankan life. The conditions in which the teaching and learning of English take place in the secondary school students in Sri Lanka are still far from perfect. According to the qualitative research examined, two main research questions based on results realized different perceptions among individuals arise from experiences that influenced the respective individuals on a particular matter. Findings could be generalized to other Asian countries' context with similar settings where English is taught as a second language. Also, this study suggests that using traditional teaching approaches and classroom techniques along with the appropriate materials can help students studying English in government schools. ESL teachers teaching government schools are deviant from application of communicative language teaching in classroom. All four teachers did not use of activities interactive and engaging that learners could not use the target language authentically. This is not guaranteed that the teachers and learners will become proficient users of English language. Also, the results showed teachers are not satisfied with teaching English in government schools. To conclude, I hope that teachers will understand to reflect on their own difficulties in teaching English language as a second language and they together with teachers and policymakers glean useful information to minimize these difficulties and from a positive teaching and learning environment. Let's come to the end. Thank you. Thank you for joining with me and watch my video today. I am waiting to join with the others presentations as well. Wish you all good luck. Have a nice day.